Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, I want to thank the House. Yesterday, I proceeded midway. This age and time, we hope with the current security operators in place, should be having to ensure, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I want to urge all counties to ensure they have a proper place in pushing this agenda, Madam Speaker. And of course, the King is in town. That goes without notice, and I hope the King does not listen to what the former people who occupied these lands many years ago would listen to. Madam Speaker, and I want to emphasize what Deputy Majority Leader said, that State House is a public entity, and each and every Kenyan is allowed to visit State House and meet the President. And I hope ODM will suspend their disciplinary action against members of Parliament who have visited State House to discuss development, since their party leader has also visited State House. Madam Speaker, on the aspect of offenses, I've come up that we need to stop this menace. The biggest challenge, and I say there, in Baringo, in Elgeyo Marakwet, and northern and central Kenya, is because of lack of development, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need, now that Kindiki is pushing for security, the necessary agencies like Ministry of Roads and Transport should ensure there are security roads. Madam Speaker, they should push to ensure there are security roads within those regions, Madam Speaker, so that when an insecurity occurs, the police can reach those areas. Because, Madam Speaker, when you visit those areas, you realize they have impassable roads, Madam Speaker. And I hope the Interior Ministry and Ministry of Roads should work together to ensure their provision of security roads, Madam Speaker. But we are not saying they should only do security roads in those areas, but ensure Nandi gets roads, Madam Speaker, so that we can access, and part of Kenya, the entire of this part of the world, ensure that we do that, Madam Speaker. And I think if we can provide security roads in those areas, ensure they're accessible, it will allow ease of movement and even bring development. Schools should be there and many other aspects, Madam Speaker, so that we can ensure that we develop our country across. So schools should be developed, roads should be developed, hospitals should be there, so that those people feel they are part and parcel of Kenya. Madam Speaker, when I was growing up, when the people from Turkana used to come to Nairobi or other parts of the country, they used to say, I come, natoka Turkana, ndio nimefika Kenya. We want that thing to be done and be over to. So we must commit, the way we finish issues of FGM, the way we finish many other issues, Madam Speaker, we should be ready to tackle the issue of cattle rustling and banditry, Madam Speaker. And I saw the police in Baringo and I sympathize. They cannot pursue those criminals because the terrain, they know those terrains more than we do. Because of lack of roads, Madam Speaker. And my advice to the people in charge of those police officers is that they should work towards this end, Madam Speaker, and avoid doing politics at the expense of doing their job. Madam Speaker, there is also issue of branding another person's livestock. We have banned that, and if you are found to have branded another person's livestock, we shall fine you 1 million. Or 14 years in prison. Because we are bringing, let us brand the animals, brand them. When you come and sell in Dagoretti Corner or other abattoirs, that abattoir must have proper records of the animals they are slaughtering. Madam Speaker, a person who steals livestock or produce or receives any livestock or produce knowing or having reason to believe it and be stolen livestock or produce, we are bringing, commits an offense and shall be liable to not less than 20 years. Madam Speaker, on the aspect of using violence, especially where deaths have occurred, when you are stealing livestock, for the criminals, and they should be warned, is to a term of life imprisonment. So if you are found stealing animals or livestock forcefully using violence, you must be punished with that, with no option of fine, but to be life term of imprisonment. So all the bandits and cattle rustlers who have been taking advantage, Madam Speaker, they should be warned, they will go in for 15 years. Number 3, Madam Speaker, if you incite, procures, directs, instigates, or colludes with another person, and this is a warning to my colleague politicians, or any person who condones the issue of cattle rustling and banditry or livestock stealing, you will be ready if you participate in procuring, inciting, hires. And these are criminal enterprises that finance cattle rustling and cattle theft in this country. If you are even a financial seated in Nairobi, that you are sending criminals to steal animals in northern Kenya or North Rift, if we arrest you and get you, you must be put in without an option of fine, Madam Speaker, to not land less than 15 years. If we find you also trespassing with the intent of stealing cows or livestock, you will not be, if you find you just trespassing, you have not stolen, you have trespassing, you will not less than, not exceeding 7 years. And Madam Speaker, number 5, no person shall without lawful authority drive or convey or transport any livestock produce along public road unless that person is possession. So you must have what we call removal permits. So I have seen many lorries who transport animals to Nairobi for slaughter. If you don't have removal permit, you don't have the details of where you bought those cows, Madam Speaker, you should be ready. You should be ready, that person, and proof, Madam Speaker, everything. You must have all the removal permit. There are details on how you remove, where did you buy, what is the description of the animals, where is it going, who are you selling to, where the purchase, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is the aspect that we want to introduce, Madam Speaker, is required to have in terms of subsection 1. The one who contravenes, Madam Speaker, must be ready for punishment, and if you alter or insist on tampering or brand or ear, for example, people want to steal animals and go and remove the branding, Madam Speaker, we are going to punish you for 3 years or a fine of 1 million. So if you steal animals and you go and change the branding and destroy, Madam Speaker, you should be ready to a fine of 1 million or 3 years. Madam Speaker, we are also going to be very keen, and members should listen to this. There will be no allowance of movement of animals between 6:30 p.m. up to 6 a.m. in the morning. So if we find you transporting animals beyond 6:30 along the road or before 6 a.m., then you shall be punishable by law. And that person will be punished either for 12 months or you will need to be paid 800,000 as a fine. Madam Speaker, finally, the 6th point, illegal possession of livestock. If we find you having livestock that you cannot explain, I know in where I come from, sometimes you find a cow which is training and you're keeping it. But if we find livestock that you do not have possession of in your place and you cannot explain, we shall ensure you go in for the next 15 years. And even illegal possession of produce. Madam Speaker, the 6th, and you know this issue of cattle rustling and banditry is a very complicated topic, and I hope my colleagues will bear with me. A person who kills any livestock with intent. These are, you know, nowadays, Madam Speaker, the cattle rustlers and banditry who steal livestock have changed strategy. They go and slaughter, including donkeys. We have seen cases where donkeys or animals have been slaughtered. If we find you have slaughtered so that you bring carcass to Nairobi, Madam Speaker, you shall be liable on conviction to imprisonment for not less than 10 years. So be warned, if you are slaughtering donkey somewhere, you are slaughtering a chicken somewhere, you are slaughtering an animal somewhere, Madam Speaker, it will be an offense that will attract not less than 10 years. I know there are experts who normally slaughter donkey, Madam Speaker, and sell unknowingly. And I want to repeat what I said yesterday, Madam Speaker. We could be knowingly or unknowingly financing the cattle rustling. Because the meat that is on the table, either in canteen, cafeteria, or parliament, or across the country, you could knowingly or unknowingly be a case of stolen animal. Madam Speaker, what happens when you seizure the animals? The law says that when animals have, let's say Jeshu have gone on a military operation order in Kerio Valley or Tiati or Kapedo or Northern Kenya, Mandera, when they take these animals, they must release within 3 days or 72 hours to the owners so that, Madam Speaker, we ensure. That is what I wanted to insist. So I want to assure the public, when you lose your animals and police investigate and seizure, they should release upon proof of ownership within 72 hours. Madam Speaker, we need to punish the financiers. Upon application made by law enforcement to the court may make an order for investigation by the law enforcement into the dealings and assets. So what I am proposing, Madam Speaker, if we find you as a financier of livestock theft and cattle rustling and banditry, We have the courts can order investigation into you and have your assets being frozen and those assets being recovered, because we believe that has been used, and even freezing of your assets. So what we are doing is killing the head. We are not going for the small bandits who run around in Keriovala among other areas. We are going for the financiers. And when we get you as a financier, we must use asset recovery and freezing, Madam Speaker. I had said the seventh one is on public awareness, Madam Speaker. We shall ensure that we sensitize, and that is the work of counties and CEC, because CECs have a role of ensuring there is branding, appointment of inspectors, Madam Speaker. The fourth last point is that we are now giving option of ADR. We appreciate where Senator Peris Tobiko and others we come from. We value ADR. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that Section 34, the county executive shall collaborate with elders and gatekeepers of communities in promoting the use of community dispute resolution, including mediation in determination of any disputes regarding livestock theft. Because, Madam Speaker, livestock theft, from where Senator Peris Tobiko comes from, Madam Speaker, sometimes they allow ADR. You know, sometimes where you come from in the past, you could not get married without participating as a form of ritual or initiation into adulthood or in marriage, Madam Speaker. So we are proposing that let us have ADR. Even our constitution, Madam Speaker, allows that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the general, if you offend this law, Madam Speaker, we are proposing less than 500 years to imprisonment for 5 years, or 5 years, sorry, 5 years, not 500 years. No one will be sorry for that, to imprisonment for not exceeding 2 years or to both. Madam Speaker, the counties, after we pass the Cabinet Secretary, Madam Speaker, for the registration and identification of livestock, for removal or convenience of livestock, management of livestock centers, sensitization, and charges and fees to be paid by registrar under this act. So we are giving power, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in finality, the purposes of Article 94(6) of the Constitution, what we are going to do, in conclusion, what we are going to do, Madam Speaker, is we are going to, I know there is existence of Stock and Produce Theft Act, Penal Code Prohibiting Livestock and Produce Act, Madam Speaker. I know there is Penal Code 278 of the Criminal Procedure Code. My intention in this bill, and with the support of the Senate and National Assembly, Madam Speaker, but the point I wanted to insist is that for these areas to stop, let us be deliberate in terms of development. Let us ensure equity and equity. And I'm happy that the President said that, that this will be government that will wipe out the issue of cattle rustling across the country. My heart goes out to empathies and sympathies to many families who have lost their livestock and their loved ones because of this insecurity, Madam Speaker. And I want to urge that the Minister of Education should move in speed and establish education centers, rehabilitation centers, Madam Speaker. I went to West Pokot and I'm happy that the President during campaign, even when he was the Deputy President, he presided over an Arambe to bring back the Morans who used to participate in cattle rustling, Madam Speaker. We must build rehabilitation centers through the Ministry of Interior. Madam Speaker, I want to encourage Ministry of Interior also to put in place the National Police Reservists in terms of equitable basis. Because the argument we are hearing, this community says they are being, KPR are being armed, this one has been armed, Madam Speaker. So what we are just saying is that let us ensure that, and then number 3 is, my proposal is very simple. Why don't we get young people, these reform bandits, to be hired by National Police Service Commission as police officers? Then they are sent back to the terrain of Kapedo, Tiati, all those areas, North Rift, Northern Kenya, because they understand the terrain, Madam Speaker. You are taking somebody who grew up in Nairobi, went to Kikanjo, then you take them to Tiati or Kapedo to fight bandits, or even in Baringo or North Rift, Madam Speaker. Why don't we change and even reform them and then put them to fight and ensure that we win the war against that, Madam Speaker? That is the only way we can finish. And I told you, 60% of our homes depend on gross domestic product, Madam Speaker. So I want to urge the Ministry of Interior, working together with the Ministry of Education, and finally, Ministry of Roads and Transport, Madam Speaker. Let them ensure that there is security of roads in this country, Madam Speaker. And luckily enough, the Minister of Roads comes from Elgeyo Marakwet County, where we're having a problem. He should be busy fixing those roads in Elgeyo Marakwet called security roads, so that we don't have problems, instead of belittling and demeaning us in funerals and other forums, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for the branding to facilitate and recovery of livestock, we have said we will do that to ensure in place, Madam Speaker. But I want to continue emphasizing that we need good roads, Madam Speaker. Let us have a proper mechanism so that we can go into the future. Finally, Madam Speaker, before I allow Senator Peris Tobiko to second this bill, is to thank your office for overwhelming support, guidance through the process of drafting, through the process of supporting, Madam Speaker, through the process of ensuring that it is published within specific areas, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, with those very, very many remarks, I want to call upon the House to assist in expediting the bill, so that in the next few months this bill can be in place, so that we put the last nail on the coffin on the issue of livestock theft, cattle rustling and banditry and other forms of criminals that continue to steal our livestock. Madam Speaker, with those I beg to move and request that Senator Peris Tobiko, my sister and the future governor of Kajiado, to second me. I thank you.
Senator Peris Tobiko.